This is a response to the worst argument in all of, well, in all of ever. This episode, there's more. Yes, you guessed it, more errors from Izamen. Hi, I'm Raz Pasha. This video is a follow-on from the series of videos, a response to the worst argument in all of, well, in all of ever. You do not need to view those videos to understand this one, as it's self-contained. However, if you want to laugh, do so. It is simply unbelievable how many errors or deliberates a person can make. What was amazing was that if Izamen said something, it was wrong at every conceivable level. It would be wrong factually, logically, and the overall argument that he'd use it in was usually without merit. Let's consider the following example. Izamen, shown on the screen, wrote, "Hitler himself says in Mein Kampf that his public statements should be understood as propaganda that bear no relation to the truth but are designed to sway the masses," and that the quote came from page 65. So, what was wrong with that? Firstly, Mein Kampf itself was a public statement. So this statement, being a public statement itself, bears no resemblance to the truth. So on that basis, we should consider Hitler's public statements as reliable. What we have here is a variant of the liar's paradox. Unless you're a comedian, and I guess Izamen comes close to that, you should not use the liar's paradox to try to prove anything. Second, Izamen claims to be familiar with Mein Kampf, and to know that the quote comes from page 65. Problem is that Izamen is not familiar with Mein Kampf. When you turn to page 65, you find the quote showing that Hitler was a young earth creationist. Not a very helpful page to direct people to if you're trying to deny that Hitler was a Christian. Third error, worse still, it wasn't even a quote. Dinesh D'Souza had made it up. If you're going to fabricate evidence, then may I suggest that the liar's paradox is not a good place to start. Fourth, from this, Izamen says that we can only look at Hitler's private statements, so he goes on to Hitler's table talk to get some quotes. Problem is, the quotes were not even in the German originals of Hitler's table talk. Fifth problem, Izamen argued that the originals were forged, but the fabricated interpolations inserted by a known forger of historical documents, well, you guessed it, yes, Izamen kept using those quotes. So he either thinks that fabricated interpolations are bona fide, or we can conclude that everything that Izamen says is meant as propaganda and bears no resemblance to the truth. Sixth problem. Hitler's table talk was always meant to be a public document, so it's no good to quote if you're looking for private statements. Next, is Jesus a historical figure? Izamen said, "Historians seem to think so, and considering they are scientists of history," and, "well, that's what historians seem to think, and it's not like they're doing it for a living." Well, problems. 1. Arguments from authority are logical fallacies. 2. By calling historians scientists of history, Izamen's attempting to construct a super-authority. Arguments from super-authority are still logical fallacies. 3. Izamen forgot to name any authority. An argument from authority without an authority is next to useless. So here's one for you. Richard Carrier, look him up. So by the logic of Izamen's own argument, I guess I'll have to give up my belief that Jesus was a historical figure. Moving on. Now, Izamen concluded his video with, "I'm not going to argue about it until you, Raz Pasha, state your beliefs." Finally, something that Izamen says that sounds reasonable. But does he take his own advice? With respect to the writing of the Gospels, Izamen said, "It all started about 30 years after Jesus' death, not 1,000 like Raz Pasha seems to think." Here, Izamen should have waited for me to state my beliefs. Either that, or Izamen is deliberately confusing the compilation of the Bible, and in particular the closing of the canon, with the writing of the Gospels. This seems to bear out that everything that Izamen says is meant as propaganda and bears no resemblance to the truth. Conclusion. Izamen presents himself as a classic textbook case of how not to argue. If you enjoyed this video, you might like to have a look at a few of the other videos in the series, such as Izamen's attempt to circumnavigate the evidence, or the one on Hitler's table talk, or the full version of the liar's paradox. Cheers.